This week, we're really lucky to have with us Liam Darmody, who is a product leader, but is also been building out Rundock, which is a really interesting platform for managing your team of agents. I've already seen a little bit of a preview of what he's done, and this was before he's done the latest updates, and it was really impressive. What, like 6 weeks ago? One of the best setups that I've seen. So I think this is going to be really interesting, both to get a peek inside how he's thought about that, but also just to get your head around how to think about building agents yourself and automating the key workflows that you've got. With that, I won't take up too much time. I'll hand over to Liam, and we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thanks for the intro, Ed. I'm Liam. So I'm an Aussie based in London. As Ed said, I'm a product leader by trade, and these days I've been building Rundock, which is a tool for running a team of agents. Now, before I get going, just a really quick thing. I'd love to know where all of you are at in terms of using AI. So drop a number in the chat, 1 to 5. 1 is I open ChatGPT now and then, and 5 is I've already built an agent that does real work for me. Now, I'm not going to stop. I'll let this come in. Don't overthink it. Just put a number. Okay, so while those land, here's what I want to do with our time. Everyone is talking about what AI might do to how we work. Lots of predictions. I'm going to skip the predictions and I'm going to show you my actual setup instead. The real thing, doing real work live. Now, some of it might wobble because it is live, and that's fine. And questions are welcome the whole way through. Drop them in the chat as they occur to you. Don't save them up. Ed's going to keep an eye out on them and we'll take them at the end during Q&A. Okay, so I can see in chat we've got quite a few. Okay, so we've got some 1s, 3s, 4s. Okay, and agents built with Claude. Okay, so this is awesome. We've got a bit of a range here of folks that have experience building with agents or using AI chat. So look, if you leave with one thing that you can build this week, I've done my job. That's what this session is all about. I want it to be really practical so you can have takeaways and actually apply it today or tomorrow. So let me start with the reason any of this exists. 5 weeks ago, my daughter Lottie was born. Now, I knew she was coming, so last year I did something deliberate. I built a team of AI agents to carry the parts of my work that don't need me. Some of the writing and the drafting, the research, the briefings, the admin. I built it because I knew my time was about to disappear, and it has. I've got a lot less of it. Lottie's 5 weeks old. I'm running on broken sleep, and the work is still going out because the team I built is carrying me through it. So everything I show you today is already happening, and I've been living it for 5 weeks. So a rewind to before she arrived. Like most of you, I was using AI the way most people use it. I opened a chat window, I'd ask a question, I'd get an answer, I'd close the tab, and this was genuinely useful. It was, 10 minutes at a time, dispersed throughout the day. But every time I came back, it had forgotten me. It didn't know my work, my voice, my clients, my standards. And I was working with a brilliant intern that had amnesia. It was the most capable intern that you've ever met on their first day every single day. And you can't hand anything that matters to someone who forgets you overnight. So that was the wall I kept hitting. So I changed the relationship. I stopped using AI as a tool and I started managing it as a team. And that word managing is the one that matters. Each agent has a name, a role, a written instructions, plus access to my real systems, my calendar, my notes, my task list. They remember me between sessions. They follow rules that I wrote down once, and they produce work I can actually ship. So here's the part that surprised me. Everything this takes, you already know how to do. Writing a job description, delegating, giving feedback, reviewing someone's work. All of this is management. And that's the shift everything else today builds on. This is about managing agents as if you were managing people. So what does a team of agents actually look like day to day? Let me show you. This is the part I'd want to see if I was sitting where you are, so it's where we're going to spend most of our time. This is Rundock, and this is my actual team. I've got 9 agents. There's one human, that's me. At the top of the org chart is Coz. Coz is my chief of staff. He routes work and runs my morning briefing before I wake up. Under him, the specialists. Pen leads content. She drafts everything I publish. Leah runs my calendar and meeting notes. Dev writes code, Des does design, Arlo watches the AI world for me. Solo preps me for sales conversations, and Pen has a team of her own, an analyst and a researcher. This is agents managing agents. And Doc, down the bottom, ships with Rundock. He's the guide, so he doesn't count against my 9. Every agent here has a job description that I wrote, the same way I would for a person. So let me show you 3 of them doing real work. So we are going to go switch screen, and this is where we switch over to the demo. Okay. All right, so I've got a conversation here going with Cos already. This is about the Hustle Badger session that I've been preparing for. So I'm going to drop in a message here for Cos to introduce himself to the room. So while that's running, I'm going to just show you something else in the meantime. So I've got Todoist on my phone. Sometimes there are things that I want my agents to do when I'm not at my computer. So when I'm out and about on the train, traveling somewhere, I pull up Todoist and I drop a task in on the agent Todoist taskboard. So this is an example. I could be doing this on my phone right now. I'll add this task to the inbox of the board, and we'll check in on this toward the end of this session. So this is about researching the most important AI launches and releases of the past week. And we'll see what comes out the other end. All right, let's get back to Rundock. So Cos has now introduced himself to everyone here on the call. And okay, so when you've got... So ask me for 3 ways into a post and pick one that sounds like me. Keep the taste. Okay, which one? So let's go with the first. Now, I've also got a few other prompts that we're going to go and explore in parallel. So let's say we want some ideas for some potential hooks. So I might start a new conversation, and I'll drop this in for Cos. Now, while this is going in parallel, we've got 2 conversations happening at the same time. I'll show you what that looks like on the org chart. So we have Cos at the top, we've got my specialist agents down below, and you can see that...
Liam,
yes.
So just to jump in here, is there any way you can zoom in a little bit? Because some people are finding the screen a little bit small to see everything.
Yes, of course. How's that?
Yeah, that's much better. Thanks.
Great. Okay, so we can see here, Pen is still working away. Cos has finished. Cos has done some delegation behind the scenes. And if we jump back into the conversations, we can see that Cos has identified this question that I've asked, this task, as something for Pen. And Cos has now delegated this to Pen. All right, so Pen's picked this up and is going to be using the generator skill. Whilst that's happening in parallel, I'm going to show you how some agents chain skills and tasks from one agent to the next. So we're going to kick off a new conversation. I'll drop this in here. So I want to show all of you how team chains together. So we'll find the most significant AI story of the past week for product people. We'll decide on the strongest angle and then turn it into a single slide visual concept. So this will happen in parallel whilst we're running these other things here. So whilst those are working, I want to show you what the agents actually look like when you click on them. So every agent has a profile. So we can see here, this is the profile for Cos, my chief of staff. We've got a description about Cos's role. We can see what Cos does, what Cos has access to read from and write to. We can also see the skills that are assigned to Cos, and we can see some routines that Cos runs. This is the morning briefing that runs every day at 5 a.m. We can see the connectors that Cos has access to, the model that he uses, the runtime, and all of the instructions that make COS work. So this is all available inside of Rundock. Now, behind the scenes, all of this is just a set of markdown files. That's it. So a workspace inside of Rundock is just a folder of markdown files. So I can open any of these up and we can look at what makes up Leah, Penn, Anna, right? We can see the skills they have. This is in the same way that you would for a human. We can see what they have access to, what access rights they have, what they can read from, write to, and what skills we've been teaching them over time. All right, so we've now got a couple of unread messages. So let's look at these. So COS has looked at 3 ways: hooks only, your call, and which one lives. Okay, so Penn has now generated 3 potential hooks that we could use. So most product managers still treat AI as a tool they open. The ones pulling ahead treat it as a team that they manage. So this is very relevant to the session that we're running today. A tool sits there until you pick it up. A team works while you're asleep. Most of us are still picking up tools. And the best AI tool won't move you forward. Learning to run AI like a team will. All of this is incredibly relevant to the session that I'm running for all of you right now. And hopefully it's relevant for you in the product world. Okay, so COS in this one has done a little bit more of a comprehensive work behind this. COS has delegated this task to Penn, and Penn has gone out and used the training, the skills that I've created to create some different hooks using different angles. So we've got a story angle, an observation angle, and a reframe angle. So again, similar, we can see the working and the logic behind the task that Penn has executed on. Now, if we look at this one here, so some research. So COS has recognized that this is an AI research task. So he's delegated this task to Arlo, who's my AI research lead. And we can see that Arlo's come back. The story, 2 frontier labs shipped the same bet 2 days apart. So, okay, so it's talking about the latest work from Anthropic as well as the latest work from OpenAI. We can see that COS or Arlo has rejected 2 strong contenders and why. And the so what for a product leader. Now there's some raw material here, some sources and some raw material that's been provided to Penn. So what I would do from this output, I would go through the research and find what is most compelling for the people that I'm writing this content for. What is most interesting? What is most useful? I'd pick up that thing. I'd say, okay, so let's go for the, let's say the 48-hour gap. Okay, so Arlo's going to pick that up. My hunch right now, what he should do is delegate this to Penn. He's going to help with some of the content. All right, so
Liam,
whilst yes,
there's a question in the chat. I think not sure when it's the best time to answer it, but someone was asking, why, what are the benefits or what makes Rundock different from Claude?
Yeah, good question. I have a slide for that I'm going to show you at the end of this session. So I will give you a very brief answer now, but I'd love to go through it in a little bit more detail toward the end. So one of the things for me, just to answer that question quickly, is I find Claude Code is an amazing product that gives you immense power, but it has been built for developers. It's in the title, it's in the name of the product. It lives inside of the terminal. And a lot of the functionality, a lot of the features behind Claude Code are all hidden. So we've got a .claude folder that lives on your local machine, and inside of that folder lives agent files and skill files. This is the training and the context needed for agent teams to work incredibly well. The problem is most non-technical people don't know where to find that folder, and they don't want to spend all of their day inside of a terminal. So Rundock runs on top of your Claude subscription. It runs on top of Claude Code. Claude Code is under the hood. Rundock is just a visual workspace that sits on top of it. And with this, you can see your team, like I was showing you before. They're all on an org chart. You can click on them. You can view everything that is in the agent file. That sits inside of the instructions here. And in a similar way, all those skills that would normally be hidden inside of skill files in the hidden.claude folder, those are all available in the UI as well. So we've got a description for it. We can see all of the instructions. We can also see who those skills are assigned to. So in this case, this is assigned to Arlo. In some cases, I will have skills like say my Google Calendar skill that's assigned to both Coz and Leah. So this whole mental model of building out a team, behind the scenes, it really is a system. But the mental model of a team makes it easier for most non-technical folks to interact with Claude Code. And it also brings the agent files and the skill files to the surface. The other big difference is if you've ever tried searching for specific sessions and perhaps specific things that you've said inside of a Claude Code session, it's extremely difficult. And this could be so much easier. In my latest release for Rundock, which went out yesterday, I've now released a universal search. So now what I can do, this indexes everything inside of a Rundock workspace. It indexes the files, the conversations, the agents, and the skills. So I can search for something, say, for example, Hustle Badger. I can look at any file that relates to Hustle Badger. I can look at, say, conversations. This is the bit that would be really hard inside of Claude Code. It now brings up conversations that are relevant. So I'll click on this, and it takes me directly to the conversation where that word or that meaning was mentioned. So this is something that would be incredibly difficult to do locally in the terminal using Claude Code. Now, Cowork also exists, but in my opinion, it's far more clunky than it should be. I think this really is what Cowork should be. Okay, where did we get to with the latest thing here? So Arlo's given me a Titan timeline. Okay, so why this strengthens the angles. I'm going to say I think this is ready. I think this is ready for pen now. I think this was picked up a little late by Whisperflow. I think this is ready for pen now. Okay, so Arlo's going to take this context, this research that Arlo's done, and will hand this off to Pen, who is my content lead. So look, I would normally spend a little bit more time going through the content that has been generated, the research, the angle, and the specific hook that I want to take. But for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to show you how multi-chain handoffs happen inside of a Rundock conversation. So we'll see that this is now happening real time. We've gone from Coz to Arlo. There's been a bit of back and forth with my AI research lead. Now we've gone to Coz because Arlo can't delegate directly to another specialist. So Arlo's recognized this isn't something that I can take, so he's handing that back to Coz, who's my orchestrator, and then Coz will delegate this to the appropriate specialist on my team. All right, so while that's happening, I'm going to go back and look at Todoist. So where are we? So that task that I dropped into the agent board on Todoist has now gone through the entire delegation pipeline, and it will show up in my workspace. So I'll scroll down. Where that has landed is this one here. So this was the task that I dropped into Todoist. Coz, who's the orchestrator, does all the routing. So Coz picks up that task, recognizes what this task is and who it's for, then he routes it to the right agent. So in this case, it was routed to Arlo. Arlo's picked it up. It landed in Arlo's queue, Arlo's done the work, and then has dropped a response in the comments for me to go and look at. So similar kind of output from the conversation in Rundock. Arlo's given me the top 3 launches for PMs. So we've got Anthropic Claude Sonnet 5, GPT 5.6, and Meta Muse Spark. And then we've got 3 GitHub repos to watch. Um, I know Orca. I think it's the first time I'm seeing Desktop Commander MCP and also Stitch Skill. So those are ones that I will look at after this session. Um, and then Arlo's just saying that it is skipped to wider Google DeepMind's Gemini 3.5. So the next action, there's none required. Um, this has all happened interactively or asynchronously inside of Todoist. If I wanted this to land somewhere else, say for example, inside of my Rundock workspace, or if I wanted to ask a follow-up question or send a follow-up exploratory task, what I would do is I would drop a comment in here and I would drag it back to the in progress agent tasks board. That would be picked up by Arlo within the next 10 minutes, and Arlo would come back to me with his response. Okay, so we can see now that Arlo's handed this back to Cos. Cos is now delegated to Pen, and Pen has now gotten on with this task. Now, I think I did have another potential prompt for you. So let's go with this one. In fact, instead of that, I'm going to go and show you a new feature that has just gone out yesterday. So what this feature is, what I realized when collaborating with my agent team, sometimes there are very specific things that I want to perhaps have a bit of a jam on, and very specific things that I want to get feedback on. So rather than asking for feedback or to refine an entire document, there might be specific sentences or specific points in a document that I want some help refining. I want some help exploring. So what I've sent out yesterday, there's a really great open source tool called Rough Draft that I was using a fair amount. And what this does is it brings up a markdown document in a nice HTML page, and you can go in and add markup, comments or suggestions. And this helps you collaborate with agents. What I found was when I used that, it broke any specific syntax that showed up in Obsidian. So it broke the YAML front matter. It broke tables in Markdown. And this kind of annoyed me. So I thought, oh, surely I could build this into Rundock. And I have. So we've got this review feature now that exists. So I can go into a file and I can highlight something and then just add a comment. And I can send these comments through to an agent, and they can either reply to that comment, or I might want some suggestions made about different ways of phrasing things. So those inline suggestions will land inside of the document or inside of the file, and I can either approve or reject those suggestions. In this case, we've got 2 comments, and I can go and review those comments. So this is a feature that turns your interaction with agents into a way that you would perhaps be interacting with humans. Say, for example, if you're in Google Docs or in Microsoft Word, you'd be tracking changes, or there'd be a comment feature and you'd have a bit of back and forth commentary between you and your colleagues. This enables the same kind of interaction, but with your agent. So don't outsource all of the work, don't outsource all of the thinking, practice your judgment, add comments, ask for suggestions. You can go through and make the judgment calls.
If I can just jump in here, can you also edit these
Yes.
files just directly, kind of in line by typing things, or do you need to leave comments or go to Obsidian to
So this
edit the
is
files yourself?
yes. So I've built in a rich Markdown editor directly into Rundock. So all of this is editable. So I can edit the file wherever I am inside of Rundock. I can add comments wherever I want, and that editing is live. It shows up in any other viewer for Markdown. So if I've got Obsidian open, I could go and see the update. So for example, you can see here, I've just added that I can edit the file and I've added a comment. So you can see that showing up real time inside of any Markdown viewer. So I used Obsidian a lot in the early days. Since I've built this functionality into Rundock, I'm using Obsidian a lot less. All right, so we will get rid of that commentary because it's no longer needed. So I've got one, I think I had one other potential example to show you. All right. So let's see what comes back from this. So we're on the Hustle Badger conversation. I'm going to drop in this prompt. And let's see what else I should have shown you, or I could show you in the time that we have left. And while I'm just going to scan the questions and the comments. So, okay, so zoom into Rundock, how long did it take to build the structure, paid levels, and a human-like team. Okay, so these are some really great questions. I'm going to come back to these in the Q&A shortly. So, okay, so Cos has responded. There's 3 that I'd run right now, all live with a team on screen. Okay, so how many competitors, latest move? Fine. Give me a raw idea in one messy sentence. Throw me your actual week. Too much fit and I'll push back. Okay, so these are 3 potential prompts that I could take you through. Other examples could be, if you look at my team, they've got access to my Google Calendar, so I could ask them to review my schedule for the rest of the week, and let me know if there's anything specific that I need to review and prepare for. So that's all available. They've got access to my Todoist to help me manage and prioritize my tasks. So what they do at the end of every day, you can see there's a granola end of day sync. They'll go through all of my granola notes. They'll look for tasks relevant to me. They'll pull those out and sync them directly with Todoist. So I know what I've committed to at the end of this meeting, and I'll have those land in Todoist for me. And then we've got some weekly research. I use Fathom Analytics for all of the websites that I run and manage. It's like Google Analytics, but more of a privacy-centric one. They've got a really great API. So I've also got a weekly routine that runs on Monday where it pulls in all of the analytics and gives me an update as to how it's all tracking. And I think that's relevant to anyone in the product world. There's also a weekly AI intelligence digest that comes through on Saturday morning. So over the weekend, having a coffee or a cup of tea, I can go through and have a look at that. So I can mull it over on the weekend. So those are some other potential use cases. All right, so we're at 5:35. This has been a really, really speedy demo. We can come back to this toward the end if there are any other specific questions that relate to my agent setup. But for now, I'm going to switch back to the presentation, and we'll continue over there. Okay, so you just watched my agent team do a chunk of my week in front of you, and just seeing the kind of workflows and potential use cases for agents. Most conversations about AI stop at that half. They stop at the half called automation. That's what everyone is talking about. And this is work that happens without you. So my briefing runs before I wake up. Arlo's Digest lands every Saturday morning, whether I'm working or not. This all happens in the cloud without me having to be at my laptop. But there is a second half, and I think the second half is the bigger one, and that's augmentation. This is the work that you couldn't have done on your own at all. Automation gives you your time back, but augmentation is the part that I didn't see coming, and it's what the rest of this talk is about. So the clearest example I've got is the thing that you're looking at. It's the thing that I've been showing you. I built Rundock with this team. Now, I'm not a developer. I've built things over the years, but I wouldn't hire me to write production code. I'm not a designer either, though I care a lot about how things look and feel. What I am is a product person, 15 years of it. Judgment is about what to build, taste about how it should work. With Dev writing the code and Des doing the design, that turns out to be enough. So me and two agents built the app that I've been showing you right now. And that's what augmentation means in practice. It's a capability that I didn't have before, and it's sitting on top of ones that I did. So now I'm a product builder. Yes, I'm a product person, I'm a product manager, but I'd call myself a product builder now. And the longer I work with the team, the better they get, because every correction I give them gets written into how they work. Now, one example, the last two releases for Rundock, one went out, I think it was last week, did a complete overhaul of the entire code base and wrote a comprehensive test suite so that any new release that I put out is less likely to break anything. Any new release that goes out is less likely to lead to any regressions. The release that went out yesterday was quite a big one. I had 3 branches working in parallel, and I spent a fair amount of time the last couple of days testing it both on Mac and on Windows. And yes, there were things that the test suite didn't catch because those tests hadn't been written. But doing that human testing meant that I could make that test suite more comprehensive. And now I've got over 540 tests written into the code base. That just means that the product, every single release that goes out, is less likely to break any existing features that I've got built in. So this augmentation I'm talking about, it shows up as 2 shifts, and they'll outlast any single tool, including mine. First, your taste becomes the moat. When agents can handle the execution, the scarce skill is judgment. It's knowing what good looks like and having the standards to reject work that's just feels off. And the good news is that your taste has been undervalued your whole career because you could never scale it. You can write it down once and the team follows it forever, and you can continue to hone and refine your taste. I have a file called my voice profile. It's a couple of thousand words on how I write. And that took me a weekend to get the first iteration up and running, and then I continued to improve and refine it over time. Pen reads it on every task, along with a banned words list, nearly 100 words long, of things that I never want to say. These are just words that I don't use in my normal conversational language. She catches words on that list before I ever see a draft, and that one file has done more for my output than any productivity app I've ever paid for. Now, second, your writing becomes instruction. You already write for a living, specs, updates, tickets, and docs. That writing now has a second audience. These are agents who read it and act on it literally. They're the most unforgiving readers you'll ever have. They do exactly what you wrote. So every vague phrase and every contradiction surfaces on the first run. So writing for agents has made me a clearer writer for humans as well. And both shifts sit on skills that you already have: judgment and writing. So where do you start? Please don't try to build my 9-agent team. There was a post doing the rounds a while back. Someone downloaded a starter pack with 70 skills and 10 agents. And half an hour in, she'd burned through a pile of tokens and had no idea how any of it worked. Her own scrappy setup had been working fine. Now, start with the smallest team that gives you real time back. 3 agents. Number 1, a chief of staff. This is the agent that knows your priorities and runs your week. Number 2, an executive assistant to take the admin off your plate. They have access to your calendar, your meeting notes, and follow-ups. And then number 3, a content lead. This is the one that makes the things you publish in your voice once you've written down what your voice actually is. Now, everything they write is a draft. You are still going to have to go in and edit and refine before anything is ever published. But look, if you build these agents in that order, one at a time, and you get the first genuinely useful before you touch the second, you need to make sure that every single one is actually doing a job and is delivering real value. The pattern I see fail is always the same: trying to build the whole org chart in a weekend. One agent that works beats 9 that only half work, and The first one teaches you how to build the rest. All right, so this is the entire stack, and the total is the point. It starts with Claude Pro. That's all you need. It's about 20 bucks a month. And that's the model doing the thinking. Now, I will be straight with you. I've upgraded my Claude plan since because 9 agents keep it busy. And I've also been building Rundock that does level up my usage to a whole nother level. But $20 is where this starts, and it's plenty for your first agents. Rundock is free and it's open source. That's where the team lives. Obsidian, if you want to use Obsidian for markdown file viewing and your sort of knowledge graph, that's also free. And that's the shared workspace where all of their context sits. It sits in plain files that you can open and read. So the entry price is about a Netflix subscription with no code, no infrastructure, and nobody's budget approval. This is where you start, even if your employer doesn't have any of these subscriptions available to you, even if you can't use this tooling and use these subscriptions in your job at work, find an opportunity to do this at home in your own time. So if you take one action from today, make it this. Build the Chief of Staff agent this weekend while it's still fresh. 1 hour gets your work in first version. You write a job description, you tell it what matters to you, you ask it to plan your day. It will be rough, but it's also immediately useful. And then you spend a week correcting it exactly the way that you'd correct a new hire. And every correction gets written into its instructions, so it stays corrected and stays refined. And by this time next week, you'll have something that knows your priorities and watches your calendar and starts your morning with a briefing that you didn't have to write. And why the Chief of Staff first? It's because it pays back the part of your week that's already the most chaotic. It's the context switching, the what should I do next, the plates that you're spinning in your head at 6 p.m. And that's the agent that buys back the attention the rest of the team needs. It's only 1 hour to work in V1, a week to a useful V2. You can start this today. And this also becomes the orchestrator for the rest of your agent team. So I want to end where I started. When I began building this team, I would have told you that it was about saving time. 5 weeks with Lottie has taught me that it was never that. It's about what you get to spend your attention on. The agents took the work that didn't need me, the writing, the drafting, the research, the briefings, the admin, and what I got back is the ability to be fully wherever I am. Right now, that's with a 5-week-old daughter, knowing the work is still moving. For you, it'll probably be something else. A product that needs your full attention, a team that needs you to be present, whatever it is, that is the return. You build the team so your attention goes to the things that only you can do. So everything from today lives on one page. If you scan that QR code or type that URL, you're going to find the team, the stack, a guide to building your first agent, and there's a few links that will help you go a little bit deeper. It's also where you can sign up for what I write, which is these days, it's mostly about running a team like this, what it's actually like. And if you build the Chief of Staff this week, I'd really love to hear how it goes. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I just really want to hear how you're all going to approach this because you're all at different levels, but there's so much we can do with AI and building these agentic teams that it really is incredible. Before I jump to the questions, I want to close on the question that was asked a little earlier about the differences between Rundock and some of these other Claude Cowork, Claude Code, etc. So up on screen, you can see we've got a few differences built in. Claude is plain old Claude Chat. We've got Claude Cowork, Claude Code, and then Rundock on the far right. I won't go through all of this in detail, but you can see on screen some of the main differences between who owns the work, what it's like to use. And really, the key difference for me is building Rundock so that it's something non-technical people can use and making the power of Claude Code more accessible to more people. But with that, I'll leave it there. Ed, I really appreciate you having me and hosting this event. Thanks for everyone that has showed up. And I'm going to stick around for the next 15 minutes. I don't have a hard stop at the top of the hour, so I'm happy to go through the Q&A in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, thanks, Liam. They're really, really impressive to see the inside of Rundock there. There's a bunch of questions in the chat, so I suggest we run through those. But I think love to get your opinion as well on the sort of the more general principles here, because my understanding is a bit like, yes, I can see this is like a really nice setup, but there's no new if you're really happy working in Claude Code, there's no new functionality here, right? This is mainly a kind of like a layer on top that just makes it a bit more intuitive, a bit more accessible. So if you're kind of like you know, wedded to Claude Code for some reason, like that, you can do everything that you've done. Is that right?
Pretty much. I think if you're relatively technical, you like working in the terminal or any of those other IDEs that are out there, you're confident working with Claude Code in that kind of interface, then yeah, you're all set. You don't need any of this. I think the one thing that I will say, I was speaking to another developer earlier this afternoon, and in order to search or have the ability to search for content inside of previous sessions, he's had to go out and build his own tool. This tool that indexes all of the existing sessions on his machine. Those sessions all live locally on your machine, but they're just not they're not searchable. So this one feature that shipped yesterday, universal search on Rundock, that really delivers something that is useful to even more technical people that are using Claude Code in the terminal. But I will say that this really is for folks that don't want to spend their day in the terminal, and that's probably the less technical folks that are in the room.
Yeah, amazing. I think I'll call out some of the questions we've got in the chat. I think Simon asked one, why is a human-like team setup, based around agents, better than having one agent do everything? And I think that was a question on my mind as well. When I use Claude, I see it spinning up sub-agents. I know I could define sub-agents, but honestly, I haven't done that. So what's the benefit of having this kind of agent-centric way of working?
Yeah, so there is a difference between sub-agents and specialist agents. So a lot of the really impressive, say OpenClaw or Hermes agent, these are general agents that are incredibly impressive. They can run semi-autonomously in the cloud or locally on your own machine. Say, for example, a Mac that runs your whole show. The problem is that those are really good at doing many things, but not many things extremely well. So it's like hiring a generalist to come in and do a job for your business. They'll be able to do a little bit of marketing, maybe a little bit of sales, a little bit of development, but they're probably not going to be a really great engineer. They're probably not going to be a really great designer because they're holding so much context in their head. They're bringing in different experiences from their past career, and they can do all those things just okay. They can do it pretty well, but they can't do each of those jobs amazingly. And that's the real problem that I've been trying to solve with my agent team, because if I have one single agent, one general agent that holds all of the context and all of the skills in my workspace, their context window is going to fill up extremely quickly. And they'll be able to do a bunch of those things just okay, but they won't do it amazingly well. And that's really what I'm trying to solve. It's building this out into a system that is extremely well defined. But really, the human element is giving each of those parts of the system a name that you can come back to. That it's a mental model that makes it easier for non-technical folks to use and interact with. And really, again, this comes back to that question earlier that Rundock is for non-technical folks that perhaps systems thinking doesn't come naturally. They haven't done a huge amount of systems thinking in their previous roles. And this makes it a little bit more human, a little bit more fun to work with, and brings the context to the right agent at the right time.
Yeah, and maybe you can challenge me on a kind of analogy I use here, because I define a lot of ways of working in skills, and I guess like that way of doing it, if you've just got no kind of like clusters of skills, right? Like all the skills are in kind of Claude somehow, whereas you're saying, hey, if you bucket your skills and you kind of group them by agents, then you can specialize what that agent does, and that that's helpful for both the agent because it's only going to look within its own pool of skills, but it's also helpful for you as a human that you can think about, well, wait a second, this kind of domain, this kind of task, what do I want the behavior to be? Does that
Yeah.
kind of feel like a good analogy or a good summary?
Yeah, exactly that. It's recognizing what skills you have available to use, that your agents have available to use. And you know when you build out, you iterate on a system, on a product, you get one thing working really well, and then you want to move on to the next. And there's different systems or perhaps different components of a product. If you just have everything all in one bucket, it gets very confusing very quickly. So this just enables you to sort the skills by agent, sort the agent by skills, and improve each part of your system iteratively. So if I want to work on the content part of my system, that lives under Pen. I go to Pen, I go to her agent file, I go to her skills, and I can work on those parts very specifically. If I want to work on the AI research part or design and development skills, I go to those specific agents. I look at the skills they already have. Then I could go to other skill packs and repos that exist online, and I find all the best practice skills that I could use to upskill my developer agent, dev. Same thing for design. So it just means that I can get a little bit more focused and build out a team of specialist agents that actually know the work they're doing and can do that work really well.
Yeah, super. Look, back to the questions in the chat. Uh, Jonas or Hannes has asked, do you need to have your laptop on or your computer on for your agents to be working then, or do you have some kind of private server that kind of keeps things running in the background?
Yeah, good question. So when you first start using Rundock, everything will run locally on your own machine. And that's where everything ran for me in the early days. If you want to have things run for you when you're away from your laptop, then I would recommend exploring getting a VPS up and running. So my VPS is with Hostinger. It's very easy, sort of one-click setup. I'll admit it's a bit of a faff when you've got the VPS running, getting it all configured. But what that means is the agent board in Todoist, that's all managed by some cron jobs on my VPS. There's a few the routines that run that I showed you inside of Rundock, they all run on the VPS as well. And there's no reason that they can't run locally on your own machine. They can. But ideally, for me, I want the real context heavy, the real token heavy tasks and work to be running outside of my work hours. Why? Because we've got these 4-hour usage windows on Claude from Anthropic, and ideally, the usage windows during the day are left empty for me to actually do real time work during the day. So a lot of these other routines that take up a lot of tokens, I have them run very early while I'm still sleeping or very late at night.
Yeah, super. HMH has got a question here about whether it's viable to create those 3 agents you suggested independently. And I guess that, or do you need the interconnected chart, which I guess is the same thing as asking like what that chief of staff role that you're really kind of like recommending as being able to delegate to the other agents. Like how important is that? What's the value of having that rather than just a kind of flat organization where you manually delegate tasks to different agents?
Yeah, so I'd always recommend starting with an orchestrator. So you've probably heard of this concept, these terms. You've got an orchestrator agent who can then go and delegate work to either sub-agents or to specialist agents. So I'd always recommend starting with an orchestrator with a more generalist agent that can have access to all of the key context that they need to do the work well. Now, you could start with that one single orchestrator as a generalist agent for quite a while and just run with that. And that's where I'd recommend starting. Once Cos or whoever your orchestrator agent is up and running and delivering value, then you can start thinking, okay, what are some specific parts of my job or some specific parts of my business that I want to build specialist agents around so they can do those parts of the job incredibly well. And that's when you start bringing in specialist agents. It's like hiring a new person into the team. You would think of the role first, Then you'd go and write the job description. You'd post the job description on LinkedIn or somewhere else. You do the interviews, you'd hire them, and then you want to train them. You want to invest in their as an employee. You want to upskill them. You'd train them up, give them context, and then mentor them and coach them over many weeks so that they can get really good at that job. So I'd start with the top level orchestrator agent. In this case, that's COS for me. And then once that's really delivering value, you can start bringing other specialist agents into the team and assigning them to the org chart, reporting in to COS.
Yeah, super. Very clear. Ellie was asking how long it took you to build out Rundocker.
Huh. So I don't have a really great answer for that. It's been many months. So a lot of I suppose for me, it started with a team that I had started building and interacting with through the terminal, like anyone else using Claude Code. Um, and then there were a few things that I just thought could be a little easier, like, for example, really looking at agent files, skill files, some of the handoffs. You know, when you start a new session inside of Claude Code, that session is with a specific agent assigned to a specific model. And I wanted the ability to be able to easily hand context from one agent to another with a different model, with different skills. And I couldn't do that easily. There probably is ways to do it in terminal, but I'm not an engineer. I'm not that technical. So I thought there must be a better way. And it was early this year, probably, I think it might have been around February or March that I really started building the early version of Rundock. And it was just for me originally. And I was sort of dog fooding it, just really wasn't building it for anyone else. It was just for me. And then I thought, oh, actually, if I could sort of decompose this from my actual setup of agents, then it's probably something that would be useful to other people. And yeah, that's when I started segmenting it all and sort of building this into a product that I've open sourced it. You can find that on GitHub. You can look at the release history. That's probably a better answer to your question because you'll be able to see when that first release was on GitHub.
Yeah, super. I can see Simon in the chat has said he's already set up Rundocker on Claude. Obviously, been doing that whilst we've been talking.
Fantastic. Well, that was quick. I'd love to hear what it's like, Simon. The other thing that
Um,
I'll just drop in the chat is this concept of so I've spun up a something that I'm calling the lean agent team. And for any of you in the product world used to, working in very lean ways, um, that's what this is all about. So it's a very, very lean, simple team. Cos, the chief of staff, Bia, the EA, and Cleo, the content lead. So you could grab that if you're new to all of this and you just want something quick to get up and running. I'm really not a fan of the big comprehensive skill packs. I think they're a massive waste of time. You won't know how half of it works. You'll chew through lots of tokens. This is kind of the opposite of that. It really is something that just gives you a bit of structure to start with, and then it's your job to train and to refine that agent team. So feel free to grab that, and you'll be able to get that up and running on Rundock like within a couple of minutes.
Super. Well, look, I think we're at time there. I'll just wrap up by saying thank you so much to Liam. Yeah, I think you've dropped a couple of links in there where people can follow up with you if you've got more questions. Thank you everyone for coming along and your insightful questions. And hopefully we will see you again soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ed. And thanks for everyone that showed up. Thanks.
Great. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Awesome. Thanks.